Welcome. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to open up SPSS and some of the initial processes that I would like you to do every time we use or have an activity in SPSS that are just good habits to get into. So generally the first way to open up SPSS, especially if you already have a data set that you're working with, is to simply click on that data set. And so in Blackboard, under data sets, I've provided us with a teaching file data set. And so you would just go ahead and click on that, and then it will download. And the download will depending on if you have a Mac or a PC, will basically come up right here, and then you would hit open. Okay? For the purposes of our work today, I've actually already opened SPSS. Generally, SPSS takes a couple minutes to think about stuff, and then so if this does take like about 30 seconds to open, not a big deal, especially since I've given you a fairly large data set. I think there's about 37,000 people in this data set, which means it will take a little bit longer to run some stuff. So there are a couple different views in SPSS, and I'm going to try and make this just a smidge larger. See if I can stretch that out. Alright, so there's a couple different views in SPSS, and one of the views, this is not going to work, hang on just a second. And one of the views is called variable view, and the other is called data view. Other things to become familiar with in SPSS, and I'd suggest you just spend some time looking at this stuff and playing around with it a little bit. You're not going to harm the data set. You're not going to make it go away. It'll be available on Blackboard no matter what you do to it in its original file. And when you are working with your own data, I would strongly suggest that you have an original file and then you use file save as, so that you're never actually working in the only original version of the file, but you're working in a saved as version of the file, so that if anything does go wrong, you still have your original data. So play around, look under file, look under edit, look under view, data, etc., transform, analyze. Get familiar with this. Take about 20 minutes and just see what's available. One of the first things I like to do when I open SPSS is I actually go to edit and I go to options. And I'm kind of particular, and under the general tab that pops up, I'm kind of particular about the way I like things displayed. So if you wanted things displayed alphabetically, you could. Generally, I know my files pretty well, and so I'm not going to display alphabetically. I usually display in the order of the file, because that's usually the order of your instrument, like if you're using a survey instrument, or it might be another type of instrument that you're importing. So it's up to you though, just so you know. The one thing I like to do is click on output, no scientific notation, or for small numbers and tables. That's just going to make things look cleaner. And then the other thing that I religiously would encourage you to use is a syntax. And so I open syntax window at startup, and then I just hit apply, and I hit OK. All right. And so those are the two things that I tend to do right off the bat. So we are currently in what is called variable view. And so you can see the name, the type, the width. That's not really something to pay attention to for you guys. In decimals, what I would suggest for your data sets is to actually pull this over. And so this is data that you're not familiar with. Look through these labels. And so this is going to give you a sense of what the data are, what the questions are in this data set. Okay, so for example, this question's asking about the person's age. And then the next one over, the values category, if we were to pull that over, you can click on the dots and you can actually see 1 is age 18 to 20, 2 is 21 to 23, 3 is 24 to 29. And so you would want to just go through and become familiar with this. And if you're bringing in your own data set, so what I'm giving you here is something that is very clean. It has probably easily 100 hours worth of work into it already. And so all of this information, if you're bringing in your own data, you're probably going to have to do it on your own, and you're going to have to set this up. So for example, if we were going to go and look at another variable in this, let's go take a look at physical mobility. Does this person have a physical mobility condition that affects walking? And we've got no, 0 equals not selected, 1 equals selected, which is essentially 0 is no, 1 is yes, and 88 would be not asked. Okay? So I'd like you to spend some time just looking at the types of variables that are in here, what the values are associated with them. We can continue to scroll over, although when we think about nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in class, I have actually not changed over the measures, so most of these I think are going to be running a nominal. There are a couple scale variables in here, partially because I don't use this column. So it's just additional work. So I want to make you aware that this is not necessarily, if I'm asking what type of variable it is, you're going to need to use your judgment and look at the values associated with it to determine what type of variable it is. This measure is something I just haven't bothered to delete yet. Okay, so this gives us a variable view, and we have approximately 60 variables in this data set. All right, I'm going to switch over to data view, and this is going to run all of, let me scroll back over the top, all 60 of the variables are now across the top, and if I go back up to the top of this, so this is participant number 1, this is participant number 2, I'm going to scroll down, this is participant number 20,590, participant 20,591. We could go all the way down to 37,000. I think there's like 800 and change in here. Okay, so your data set's probably going to be much smaller than this data set, which is actually kind of nice. This data set takes a while to run, and as you'll see when we do frequencies, it's a little bit annoying because there's a lot of people in here, and so it's a little bit harder to see stuff. So this is just a brief introduction to opening SPSS and looking at your data. Okay? If you have questions, please let me know.